Get started. Thanks everyone for coming to Chicago Node.js. If anyone is looking to present in the future, you can definitely contact me. You can find me at Endangered Massa on Twitter, or you can post on here anywhere on the Meetup page, and we'll talk about what you want to talk about with my work. If you want to do something like another package show and tell, let me know. We can do those in the future as well. I don't think we're going to be doing any like workshops or anything in the near future. I haven't had time to work on stuff like that, but if you want to work on something like that, you can let me know that as well. Also, we're going to be having the Chicago or the Node.js Roadshow come here, hosted by this Meetup and Groupon in October. We're going to announce it soon, but I wanted to let you know that it was coming. And if you're not familiar, that's the joint has this Node Roadshow where they stop at a lot of different cities. See them here. So these are the places they've been, and they take some like core team members and just some high-profile people in the community, and they basically ship them off to different places to talk about Node and the enterprise and just people using Node. So this will be like a special meetup, and we'll schedule it, and you'll see it on the Meetup page. And it's still free. It's not like a charge-for event. And Kevin, you actually spoke at one of them, right? Awesome. So that'll be a lot of fun, and it'll be here. You'll see it, the normal place, normal time. But I did want to thank everyone because they said that the reason they came to Chicago was because so many people requested that city. Yep. So definitely thanks for doing that. That was awesome. Mm-hmm. It'll be officially announced hopefully next week. We do have for all Groupon public events and internal events as well, we have this new non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy, which might not sound terribly exciting, but I was really excited about it. This is something that I was helping to promote internally and get the language clarified and set up so that we could have. Not necessarily because specific things have happened, but more as not to be blind to things that do happen and we don't notice, but more to show our commitment to making our meetups a safe place to be. If anyone has any questions about this, it's not really that long. Definitely take a read through. If you have any questions, you can ask me about it. If you see anything that you think might not be appropriate, definitely come talk to me about it. We are here to help and make this a safe place for everyone. And this is just one of the things we're trying to do that. But again, any questions, come talk to me. Otherwise, let's welcome Kevin.
There we go. All right, so just a little bit of background for everyone. I presented here a couple months ago about the work that we're doing in Node at Walmart. So we've basically over the past year or so moved most of our mobile web environment to utilize Node for both proxying to some services layers as well as doing the actual rendering of our front-end content. It's all well and great. We shipped it, but unfortunately, once you ship something, you then have to maintain it. So we kind of got stuck in that rat hole. Squirrel hole, even better. I do want to say this talk is kind of all over the place. If anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt me and ask to clarify anything. Basically, once you're in production, you need to find ways to make sure that everything is working consistently and is what you expect it to be. You don't want to find out that you have a problem due to the CEO screaming at 2 in the morning. I don't know why they're up at 2 in the morning, but so the first line of defense on that in our environment is logging. We log a lot of data. Pretty much every request that comes into the system is going to have some amount of information logged on it. that helps us diagnose when things are going wrong. We have reports that are going to tell us the number of errors that we see on those reports are nightly. We'll get a service X has 20% of the responses errored for whatever reason. These are all things that you need to have in your system, just because it's going to fail. And this needs to be done in an automated manner. You can't trying to examine your Apache logs on each individual server. That's no good. So what we have in place there is we're actually using a component from the Happy ecosystem called the Good broadcaster, which is able to tie into all of the logs from both the Happy framework as well as just the application code itself. If we put explicit logging in, it all is pushed through a number of tiers, and then it ends up in a Splunk instance that we can query, and also do our monitoring and general error reporting. And to that end, we have kind of different tiers of errors. If something's on a QA environment, it's a fatal error no matter what. It's the sort of thing that will be reported immediately to user or to our engineering team as well as QA team, and it's something that we can track and get in front of it before it reaches production. But within production itself, we have a bit more relaxed of a threshold. There's no way to get a zero error count system if you have enough users banging on your system. Even just things as simple as disconnects can cause chaos that are expected. So we also implement the dashboards that I mentioned previously that give us general reports about response times, error rates, as well as a lot of front-end metrics, including client-side errors and other behaviors like that. So these are all great for helping us know exactly what's going on in the system. And once you have a problem, if you reproduce it locally, you're good. Just keep hitting the issue, reproduce it locally, keep working on it, and hopefully you can find the solution. But unfortunately, most things that you're going to find in production aren't that simple. I mentioned this in a prior talk that focused on error reporting for client-side specific code, but users have a funny way of finding every single flaw in your code, and not just your code, the code of your entire system, and they'll be able to just confuse the crap out of you while you're trying to diagnose what's going on. And sometimes it's even lower level things that are way out of your control. Like this isn't specific to Node, but we have seen on our client side tier basically compiler errors where the JIT logic blew up, and those were nightmarish to debug. So you will have to deal with these situations. And within the Node tier on the server side, if you're lucky, you can interact with the machines directly. So there's a number of projects available that let you create a REPL where you can run whatever JavaScript code you want on the server side and inspect the state of the system. Whether or not this is a good thing is up to you. You're effectively coding in production at that point and can bring everything down. But sometimes it's the quick and simple fix to get you past whatever the unknowns in your error are. The other thing that we've had is if you push a set of testing code to a specific set of servers, you can likely hit the production error cases that you haven't figured out how to reproduce locally. And with the additional logging that can help you get, that might be enough to get you past the threshold. But The problem with these are, obviously, you can bring down the servers. It can take a while to get these deployed to the system. Your ops team might not have the infrastructure in place to deploy to specific nodes. And oftentimes, some of the test cases you might want to throw out there are not the sort of things that you want to push to every node. I think one example we have is there's a memory leak that we had in our system that only occurred when a throw happened in a specific code path, and the users didn't see any negative impact because we had a failover for this, but it caused a memory leak, and under enough volume, it would bring down the servers due to the heap limit. That's not the sort of thing you want to deploy to every server on your system if you're going to deploy a test instance that explicitly throws. And then also there's auditing concerns. Depending on what environment you work in, you may have HIPAA or PCI or the various other regulatory bodies that aren't going to allow you to do this. They want to separate the programmers from production. Can't say I agree with that, but that's another matter. So say you haven't found your solution up to this point. There's a couple of things that you can do, and most of those involve taking snapshots of your system, of a individual process as it's running, and try to diagnose what's going wrong there. So there's a variety of options that are available under Linux and Solaris environments. I'm not sure if these are available under Windows environments. I had no experience with Node under Windows, so good luck to you if you're on that route. But the heap dump module is kind of the core standard that has been around for a while. Happy in its ever so whimsical manner decided to wrap that and provide an endpoint under the module poop. As the founder of Happy described it to me, poop is a plugin that takes dumps. So, yeah, he's a colorful character. And also there's a number of kind of lower level constructs that you can run within the node process that will give you a core dump, which are very much lower level, but it can get you past the issues if you get to that point. So heap analysis, it's relatively low level. Basically what you're doing is you're examining the graph of that the garbage collector looks at when it's going through its own processes. I mean, it's a much simplified version of what the garbage collector is going to do. But you look at what's in the system and see what might be maintaining references to memory that would otherwise be reclaimed. So I have a canned demo of this. It's a bit simplified. I must warn you that nothing I'm showing you today is ever this simple. So just take that with a grain of salt. But this is a heap dump that we have from one of our production instances. And the thing that really stands out here is that we have these large number, or 164 megs of retained memory on these object instances. But no one can see that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, is that a bit better for everyone? And they do not resize well, do they? There we go. So looking at this, your eyes kind of gravitate to the big numbers. What are the big numbers? In this case, it was actually nothing. It was expected. It was our memory cache that we want to be a fairly large value. And that's what all of the large items are here. So we can safely ignore those. But this is an object that's maintaining 4.5 megs of memory. And if you look at the retain graph down at the bottom, all of these items, it's unexpected for someone who knows the system. And also way too small. So what this allows you to do is you can search through your code looking for this particular token, and assuming that I have everything set up right. Yeah, so it looks like this is only in one place, so the declaration kind of stands out. And actually what happened here was we defined a hash object on the prototype, and it became a shared object across all instances of this class. Each instance of the class expected it to be a independent object on the particular class. So the end result is everything that's stored in this cache object lives forever. And over a long enough time period, this would have brought down the server. So the simple fix that we did for this, again pre-canned, was to just push all of this into, or to defer the creation of this until it was done on the instance itself. So, I mean, this is just one example of where things can go wrong. There's many. I have a summary of that in a bit. But it kind of comes down to detective work and using whatever information is available to track down what the issues are. And we've since deployed this fix, and it does, in fact, fix this particular leak that's shown here. There's also some really interesting things that you can see about the internals of Node. Let's just say that you can very quickly get lost in all this data and come up with many different postulates about what might be going wrong and how the system's working. Depending on your particular mindset, that can be a really fun thing or a horrendous thing. And depending on how bad the issue is in production. Okay, so there are some issues with this outside of the information overload factor, and that's that the way that this data is collected, it's not constant, it's not consistent in terms of how the objects are addressed. So if you're trying to compare the two instances, which I do not have pre-canned right now, but if you took a profile from a Chrome instance and then compare another profile a bit later in the running instance, Chrome gives you the ability to compare the two states and look at the objects that were created and deleted. Under this setup, you unfortunately can't do that. You can look at the raw numbers, but every object from the old dump is going to be considered to have been deleted, and every object from the new dump is going to have been considered created. So you can only look at raw differences. You can't really say, oh, this was created and that wasn't. Another issue that you're going to run into is sometimes you can't run this. It will cause a core dump within the process that is collecting this data. And while it doesn't hurt anything on production, you can't collect the data, and you're kind of left to the next phase. Another concern that can come up is that this also includes information about objects that are still in the heap but no longer referenced. It's relatively low, but if there hasn't been a garbage collection cycle recently, you'll see instances that are not highlighted, such as these, that will be cleaned up at some point, but just haven't made it to that point. So there's some level of noise that you have to ignore. So when that goes wrong, there's kind of one more step that you can take to get the data that you need. And that's core analysis using MDB, which MDB is a debugging tool that's available under Solaris, but some enterprising individuals have written tools that let you basically examine the process dumps from either Linux or Solaris, and you can see the actual JavaScript objects that are in the system. So it's really easy, really simple. It makes perfect sense to everyone, I assume. So this here is actually, in my opinion, one of the most powerful features of this, and this is related to the abort on exception flag that was referenced earlier in the slide. This happened when we had a memory leak or a failed memory allocation within our process that we had no idea how to debug it. But in the core file, it included the stack information, and while this was well past any of our own team's ability to debug, we sent this to Joint, and they had an immediate answer on what this was and how to fix it. And even then, this example goes into the internals of the system, but it does include information that is at the JavaScript level. So here, you know that the code is in the buffer object. I don't think we have anything that's really client-based, but there is a wealth of information that is available through this. If the process died, this is your best bet to find out why it died, because it will have a stack trace when it died. If it's a memory-related concern, then you need to start debugging memory leaks. But on that note, there's a number of heap analysis tools that are built into MDB, and they're a bit confusing to say the least. Basically, it's just a offline scan of all of the memory that was in the process at the time that the core was collected, be it through the crash or through a at runtime collection. You can even attach to a running process, but it will freeze the process, and generally you don't want that. Basically, this is a list of all candidates in the system for all candidates for objects that could have been in the system at the time that the core was collected. And they're grouped by various factors, but it's somewhat related to the V8 hidden classes. Basically, it's going to be a list of items that are all similar in some manner. So here we have two objects that have 17 properties that are BOXXDI. Very helpful. But you also see things like there are 35,000 anonymous timeouts. Whether or not that's an issue is another question. But this is where it gets really scary. As I said, it was... one issue that I did miss with the heap dumps, it's only the object graph. So it does not include some very important information about your system. If an object has numbers in it, they won't be there. If you look at the file size from the snapshots, they're oftentimes a quarter of the size of your actual memory space. So they drop a lot of data. This particular method does not drop data. Oftentimes it includes too much. So it's right now it's running a scan of all the memory in this particular instance. It can take quite a while. So you need to make sure that you have screen or no hup or something similar set up to make sure your sanity is maintained. And it also has a lot of data. So, I mean, this is everything in the system. But, so this particular issue that I'm highlighting, so we had a case where our in-memory cache was not, or we had a leak. We saw huge numbers on our in-memory cache, but there's some fuzziness to that. We weren't sure exactly what was going on. But we had a theory that it was not evicting data from the cache when it hit the maximum size. So we were able to look at the core dump and spell our commands properly. And sure enough, the byte size was 0, which is the key factor that controls how the data reclamation occurs. Would like to highlight that this actually has an example of an artifact from this being a heuristic rather than a strict algorithm. This first entry here is just garbage. I don't know if it had a cache object on it at one time, or if it just triggered whatever sensor in the system, but there can be cases for confusion for sure. But digging in a little bit more into this, we can take a look at the actual content, because right now it says 0. We assume there's data there, but just to confirm. So yeah, there is data here, but we have a byte size of 0. That gave us all the information that we needed to go in and fix the problem. It was pretty simple to resolve. And after we fixed it, pushed the fix, should have had a separate screen set up with this already running. It was resolved, and now I need to kill a little bit of time. So, more time than I'd hoped. Okay, so we look at the same thing that we looked at before. And byte size has a value, and we also wrote unit test or fixed our unit tests to make sure that this case was resolved. And then I must say that this is all kind of sanitized data to, one, prevent our security team from screaming at me, and two, also to highlight the exact issue. But it is really a powerful tool, but there is a lot of noise, and it can take quite a while, given you saw me trying to type in all these commands. They're not the most simple things in the world to type over and over again. But it's available, it's there, it's quite useful. The issues that come up with it are the dead object that you saw earlier, and also it does not maintain, or is not able to find references through closures. So there is a reverse lookup operator that's available, but you may think that something's completely dead, and it may not be, because there is a closure somewhere that's referencing it. And also, generally, it makes it a bit harder to look up individual values if they're only referenced by closures. But just in general, for both of these dump methods, you want to, not for everything, but for key objects, particularly if you're using a constructor, you want to use a name constructor. So that would be something like this would be a name constructor versus just an object literal where you have whatever. The way that V8 works is that it will try to extract class names from the construct that is, or from the way that the constructor is defined. And you can do things like this, and it won't care. It will still be able to look up the window name. But that's why I was able to do the memory cache search on the in the output, and I was able to find what I was looking for quickly. If you didn't have this particular setup, you'd see object with 10 properties, and you'd see the first couple, but they're not always the most helpful, and you don't know which ones are going to be in that little subset. So this particular pattern is, I think, the biggest one in terms of making all of this a lot easier. Like prior to doing this on that memory cache that I was discussing, they just all showed up one single entry. Now we have a nice root that's separated from other objects, and we know that the memory cache is taking up that much space, or retaining that much space. So some other things that, well, not strictly necessary, but we found that it helped a lot, was to clear out references to objects if you're cleaning them up and you know that they are done. That under almost all circumstances, the garbage collector should be able to take care of this, but it makes your life a lot easier if you don't have things like examples that I don't remember where they're at. There we go. If you don't have things like circular references, that the tools are smart enough to say, oh, you hit this, but they aren't smart enough to say that that's the important one. This particular instance, I'm not even sure where the root reference is, the reference that's actually causing this data to be maintained. Given what it looks like, I would suspect that it's a module required somewhere. But if you just proactively kind of prune objects that when you know that they're dead, it's a bit more work, but it makes your life so much easier when you're going through and trying to debug all of this stuff. And then the other thing, it's kind of along the lines of what I just showed with the memory cache. If you create a list of object references to active objects in the system, so all active requests or all active cache entries, you can then do a forward lookup, and it's much easier to track down all of this content in the system. And you can also script MDB. I haven't played around with it too much, but if you're going to do a lot of MDB work, it seems to be the thing that you want to do, given the amount of repetition and complexity. So that's kind of how to debug it, but we have run into a number of cases where we've leaked and it was unexpected. The biggest one across all of our JavaScript code was event handlers. This happened on both the client and the server. So if you register an event handler on a singleton or global or whatever the case may be, you've created a reference, it may not be cleaned. So using things like once is the biggest thing that you can do, but so Thorax, for example, we had to create an explicit destroy loop that breaks all of those references. And I believe Backbone proper also has something similar with the listen to behavior. Garbage collected environments are very nice, but it's easy to run into these sorts of traps. And the shared objects, unexpected singletons, that was the image cache issue that I showed earlier. We haven't run into that much, but it's very easy and very unexpected when you see it. And within the node environment itself, we've run into issues with streams not being cleared out completely. If you're if you're using streams, make sure that they are absolutely cleared, killed, or just use something like Happy. Avoid streams directly if you can. But also, we found that timers created memory leaks, and related to that was the use of domains. So initially we had a timer that was created for every time we use this cache to determine, to expire it at the point that its TTL hit. This would, since a domain would be associated with the timer object, the domain, so we had an error handler on the domain which referenced a particular request, and the net effect was every request that created a new cache entry leaked. But it didn't leak, it caused a memory retain, but when these are on the order of 24 hours and they can't be cleaned, it's, for all effective purposes, a leak. So there's some simple things that you can do to work around that, but I think the biggest thing is try to avoid creating many duplicate timers. If you're able to batch them and put them into buckets, all the better. And domains, I think people just really don't like them anymore. So that's kind of all that I had. It's very, very quick, brief rundown. I hopefully had enough time. But there's some resources. I'm going to make these slides available. Are there any questions? Anything people like to see more? Yes?
Yeah, quick question. Do you guys use the cluster module or any kind of tooling for child processes? And if you do, how does it affect these techniques?
So we don't use cluster directly, but we're utilizing many virtual machines that all have a single core and are all running a single process. And then we have a load balancer in front of that redirects traffic. In terms of how that impacts, I would say that it gives us more control over, it gives us more ability to do things like deploying test code to particular subsets and to do it for larger than just one. Some leaks have been particularly thorny and required a number of concurrent tests. But I would say the only other thing I could really think of that impacting would be not necessarily knowing which server was hosting the issue. So any other questions? Yes?
That SO file you kept uploading, where did that come from exactly?
So initially it was passed down from person to person within the company, and I had no idea where it was coming from or what code it was. But it's actually built, I believe you have to build Node directly, but under the 0.11 branches, if you build Node on Solaris, it will have out/release/mdb v8 SO. And on that note, if you're running a Linux environment or you don't have a Solaris environment readily available, there is a number of free VMs that are provided by Joint that you can set up locally. That's actually the demo that I was showing. And I believe they have a paid product, but I'm not going to show for them right now. But this works with all versions of Node. So I basically just built this under the 0.11, even though that's not what we're running in production, and it's still able to read the course just fine. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. And if anyone has further questions that they think of later, I'm KP Decker on Twitter.
That's all we have scheduled. If anyone wants to demo something or talk about something else. Yeah? What's up?
I've got a Node package that I could show.
Okay, come on.
I don't have the connector yet.
Oh.
Is it just on GitHub?
Yeah, I should, if you let me use your.
Give me those Node.js stickers. Yeah, Node.js stickers.
No. That's what you started.
Time right now?
It does.
Well, it's still a little warm.
Yeah, I got back today.
Oh, nice.
There we go.
That's a keyboard works. That was pretty well.
I mean, once it actually makes the Bluetooth connection work fine, so usually 3 seconds.
Kind of hard on the battery.
New ones is a new no, I've actually been using baseball there for no, it seems to be I'm guessing it's only when it's pressed.
Connected. It's slow.
But I found that this has better battery life and is much lighter.
One of those tools.
Yeah, I got you.
It'll last longer than my laptop, so.
But the client is definitely more than
Yeah.
I mean, be it your native app or anything.
Well, the native app needs the synchronization.
And the directed.
I believe.
Yeah.
Of course, that means that you have to go back.
How are you getting
It won't like
how are you getting to your terminal here?
Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, we'll see.
That's a virtual machine. So.
Yeah.
Would you let a node development?
Thanks.
Not yet.
Uh-oh.
Have a demo?
Alt tab. Sorry. Command tab. Command tab. Okay. All right. Hey guys, my name's Josh. Just moved here a month ago from Los Angeles. I work for a hosting company called Media Temple, and they're our parent company is GoDaddy, so we do hosting and domains and that sort of stuff. We recently started getting into Docker, which is kind of like a I don't know, like a super container engine to do our package builds. And we had some issues because we built for all these different environments to like mostly CentOS and Debian. So we had a lot of commands that Puppet would help with when you say like install this package, and it'll know to use yum or apt-get depending on what system you're on. So I created this thing. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Docker, but you have what's called a Docker file, and that basically, let's see, that basically has all these different instructions for commands and mounts that you do inside the container. So what I made was basically a JSON to Docker file converter so that you could kind of minimize the amount of Docker files you're writing if you're targeting many platforms. So I won't take too long, but I'll just clone this really quick. So the idea is that you can create unique Docker environments or Docker files for these environments using things such as tags and templates. So, for example, with this JSON file, if you pass in the tag no update, Docker will not update the system before running the rest of the steps in the file. So just to show this exact example. So if you make something, I came up with the idea of spaniel file, but you can really name it whatever you want, .json, and pass it in as input. So if you, what's going on? All right, so if you run, you can install it globally, so it's supposed to be like a command line tool. Okay, so I ran this without any arguments, and it gave me the from command and the update command. So the from command in Docker files always needs to be there. Everything else is a step. So the install Node.js didn't get run because the only tags weren't included. The update step did happen because no update was not included. So, for example, if I had passed in a tag no update, or what was it? Sorry. Underscore. You'll see it's just the from command in the Docker file. If I run it with Node.js, it will include that step. So really, you can create by using tags and a few other features that I put in there. You can create different Docker files based on just one JSON file. So that's all I got. But don't know if it applies if you don't use Docker. But thanks.
Anyone else have something they want to show? Using Kevin's laptop, perhaps?
I got something ready in my mind.
RMRF/. Cool. So if anyone is interested, there's tomorrow we're doing. I run the open source Hangout podcast, and we're doing a spotlight on the buckets team. It's a CMS written in Node. So if you're interested in that, you can listen to it. It's at opensourcehangout.com. And that's tomorrow night. Any other announcements about Node stuff going on? The Node.js Roadshow is pretty cool. That was a big one I wanted to mention.
That's in October?
That'll be in October, yeah.
I have something.
Oh, cool.
I wish I had my other computer here. Because this one right here is just like a playground testing. Let's see. Is there a HDMI port? I don't know if this room has one. I don't see one. It's just whatever.
So you use Docker? So really get like
So you have, is this over here?
I have no clue what this is.
You've had this all this time. You didn't know it?
No, I was just given this computer.
Oh, okay.
I mean, all my personal projects I put on a different one.
Sure. I pushed the budget. There we go.
Sweet. Let me put that down. All right. So this right here is something I was doing with sales in this library called D3, because at work they have me making charts. So what I wanted to do was see if D3 could be used for other things other than charts. So this is just actually what I've been messing with earlier, and it was kind of pretty fun. So for those who don't know what Sales is a real-time framework built on top of Express. You could quickly scaffold out your backend models and controllers. So it's pretty cool, and what they have built in there really nicely is what they call their socket.io, their sales socket thing. And all that really does is all your models and stuff, it auto binds to them, so that when you connect, you already got the real-time setup. So what I was doing was I was taking this library called D3, which stands for data-driven documents. And what they're huge on in D3 is binding data to your HTML documents, like all the nodes on there. So instead of like frameworks like Ember, or I know there's another one like CanJS where you'll have like this kind of like promise layer. You don't need that promise layer because it's just on the element itself, which I could show you. Let me open this right here. And what did I call this thing? Don't worry about this user tag, I just made it up. So let's go D3, select, and then it has like a selector, just kind of like regular selectors, I guess, that you'd see in jQuery. So I do this just so I could grab this one that says Sumi-chan. It's going to show me an array, and then when I click on it, we're going to see other things in here. So it shows like the parent nodes, and then right here is where it has additional data, and it's showing everything that's like bound to it, which is pretty cool. It shows all this other stuff, and here's the main part to it that is really nice. Is here's all this additional data that you didn't see on screen that's bound to it, and I put all this in there from the Sales app because this is what Sales will do for me. It'll give me the ID, it'll tell me when I updated it or whenever I created it. But because all this stuff is living on the element, you could then build other functionality wrapping around it, either if you wanted to make it into an SVG chart, or what I want to do with this is kind of make a little front-end framework just for fun. So that's like what I find like really powerful with this D3. So I guess let me drag this up a little bit to show you how it's real time, and then I could show you some code real quick of all I did to set this up. So let me move this over. I got my Chrome with this stupid ruler. I was clicking around and accidentally turned it on. So new environment, I guess, with this computer. And let's minimize this. I need to get my other window back. This window. Alright. So I'm gonna make a new post request and gonna name this one Chip. And then you just see it pop up there. Easy peasy. Because all I'm doing here is I'm just sending a post request to the server. Just updates right away. I could destroy it too, so give it an ID of 18. Actually, this is going to delete a few, I think, but delete that one. It's gone. Let me get rid of this ID here. So I could just create it. What did I do with this one? Okay. Boom. I'm on the wrong route. So Chip's back. And then Chip has an ID of 19. So I could go to /19 and change this to a put. It's just like a standard res. And then I could just name him Chipper. And then update it. and then I could even delete. So just a little bit of code that's going into it. I just have it as a single page at the moment. So let me minimize this terminal and blow this thing up. Alright. So most of this page, it's just a standard page at the moment. This importer, this is just getting imported from sales. I'm not really styling anything. There's a sales IO. It uses socket IO to do this, so it's pretty cool. Here's a D3 library, and then here's all the code that I'm actually using for D3 and getting it working. So this IO socket get, this is just a get request just on the initial load. How sales styles their socket IO, they make it look exactly like jQuery's AJAX methods. So if you already got an existing app with tons of jQuery calls in there that are AJAX, then you could just switch out the jQuery symbol and put the sales at the IO.socket, and it just works, which is pretty convenient if you're like working on integration. And then down here I got my on, so I'm just listening for server messages. So I made a switch so I could monitor the create, update, and destroy. So whenever there's a new one created, I just append a new paragraph, add in the new data. So it's not really much code to it, but it's kind of fun to work with.
Socket IO, like by default with this?
Oh,
Like you have to use it with sales?
no, you don't have to use it with sales at all. And actually, there's they're working on getting this thing called Primus in, so you could select what kind of real-time engine you want. It's pretty cool, but I mean, that's completely optional. You don't even need to use it with sales. I mean, if anyone's curious to how sales work, I could talk about it. But any other questions? All right.